What's up, everybody? It's going to be one of those shows. I can feel it. I can sense it. Either way, when it boils down to it, Kenton and I, we saw a championship game. We thought a dub would do it. Who knew being undefeated was just simply not enough?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. Each and every day, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you download, subscribe to the pod from anywhere that you listen. On today's episode, we're going to talk through Florida State being out of the College Football Playoff, talk about the ship and all things that went down against Louisville for the Noles, and then Jim Phillips. He doesn't really need a whole title because name speaks for itself at this point. Kenton, how are you feeling after last night?
I want to say I feel great. I want to say I feel good. After last night, I was feeling good. It was a great time. It was a great time in Charlotte. It was a great drive back. I mean, that was the most up I have ever been at that point in time during that type of drive. Because anybody know me, anytime I get past a 15-minute drive, I'm from the city. Now, everything that I need to be close by. But it was a great feeling until this afternoon when we got, Jordan Travis apologizing and all that good stuff. I'm sorry, Travis Jordan apologizing and all that good stuff. No, it is Jordan Travis. Yeah, it's Jordan Travis. I'm sorry. My mind got a little mixed up there. Having to apologize for breaking his leg and all that. Nonsense and debauchery all day today. Nonsense and debauchery from the committee, and we got to get into it.
Exactly. It's just been a lot, and there's just so much to tackle. We're going to try our best to do it in a very tactful way. But I want to remind you guys first that these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. Florida State is out of the College Football Playoff Championship. We are live here on this Sunday night to talk it through. There's a whole slew of bowl games that are going down, and we'll go over that tomorrow. But right now, we're trying to get the feels out, how it went, right? We woke up this morning. We said, okay, 13-0, you do all the things. You're a Power 5 conference. ACC still holds some weight in theory. And at 12 o'clock, they're just going to announce that they were part of the top four because they haven't been not in the top four thus far. Fortunately, Blue Corrigan gets up there and explains to us that the lack of Jordan Travis is the reason why the Florida State Seminoles are unable to be a part of the College Football Playoff conversation, and they will be facing Georgia in the Orange Bowl. Now, immediate reactions when you saw the top four list and Florida State wasn't on it, Kenny?
Disappointment, shock, hurt, anger. This was one of the worst decisions that I had ever seen. Oh, and trust me, trust and believe, we do have Brian Smith of Locked On Knows who will be on later this week. We are in discussion literally as we speak in terms of getting him on because he has some strong feelings right now, and everybody does. But, it boggles the mind a little bit to see how unfairly Florida State was done. People are talking about, this team didn't deserve to be in because look at how their quarterback played when these last couple of games. Number one, you're disrespecting Louisville's defense. Louisville's defense had multiple all-conference guys and multiple guys, or at least a guy in Ashton Gelati that is likely going to end up being an All-American. And so you give no credence to that. No credence to that because they didn't look good against Kentucky in a rivalry game. Okay, sure. And then you look at the third-string quarterback, how the offense looked with him, instead of looking at the backup who would have played, because let's be very clear about this. Tate Rodemaker was in concussion protocol. He dressed out and went to the game. He ended up in street clothes before the game, but in warm-ups, he was dressed out and looked like he was rolling. And so to end up in this type of situation as if they were going to have to trot out Glenn again in the playoff. And don't get me wrong, if they were going to have to play Glenn again in the playoff, I could possibly see where the committee was coming from. I get you. That game is a month away. Ain't nobody have their first concussion and is unable to play for over a month because the concussion happened a week ago. So you telling me 5 weeks off that? Foolishness.
Sure. But beyond that, I think that Mr. Glenn, had he been QB1, right, would have developed, gotten better, got the nervousness out. I think understanding and probably being under so much pressure because he feels like he has to get this dub in order to get them in to college football playoff got to him a bit. Yeah. It wasn't all his fault. You can read the yards, you can read the stats and not watch the game, because if you didn't watch the game but you read the stats, I could see how you got there. However, Keon Coleman dropped the ball. Johnny Wilson dropped the ball. Yeah. Trey Benson got stuffed in the backfield. Toa Felix was one of the only bright spots. So all the stars struggled. Now, could that have been a reason why the committee said, you know what, if their stars can't even get together, they definitely don't deserve to be there? Maybe. Who knows? But I feel for Jordan Travis having to put out a statement talking about, I wish I would have broke my leg earlier so you could see that this defense is still one of the best in the country. I wish, I hate that maybe Tate has to sit there and say to himself, dang, had I just maybe not seen stars, I could have been playing, so the conversation would have been different. Who knows? Yeah. But what the hardest part for me is the kids are trying to find rationale and reason behind some just blatant disrespect by the College Football Playoff Committee.
Absolutely. And since the inception of the College Football Committee, there have been 14 undefeated Power 5 champions. 14. All 13 before this in the playoff comfortably. All of them didn't end up getting the 1 seed, but all of them ended up getting in except for this team. And the thing that I think is so terrible about this is, to me personally, and I know that it's not fair that Boo Corrigan is getting all of the blame here because he is just the chair of the committee. But I'm gonna say this: if you make me the chair, don't make me the chair for no committee like this. Don't make me the chair, because if you try to tell me that an undefeated team that has just kept a top 20 offense out of the end zone is not making it, I'm going to tell you this much. We're going full John Q. That's one of my favorite movies. I love me some Denzel. Nobody is leaving this room until we come up with a 4 that includes all of the undefeated Power 5 champions. Nobody. And if one of y'all want to switch seats with me and become the chair to go tell the news, you can do that. But me, Kenton Gibbs, okay, I am not going to. Absolutely not.
Honestly, though, like, it's starting to feel like Illuminati is like the rig. It's really rigged because, boo, you switched your vote now that we got California teams in this bad boy. Boo, you're telling me that they've been in the top 4 this entire time and now magically they didn't have the stuff? Okay, boo. Boo, you know that North Carolina wants to get out of here, and by default, North Carolina and NC State are a package deal. So you pull one, you got to pull the other based on just how the governing bodies of North Carolina school systems work. So let us know what you're really feeling. And to sit there and talk about that as someone who leads this conference and has another school, damn, if it was NC State, would you have done the same thing?
Let me tell you something. If it was NC State, Wolfpack fans would be outside Boo House saying, I just want to talk. For those of you who don't know where I'm from, if somebody's outside your house saying they just want to talk, they're not there to talk. My brother and sister stay inside. They are not there to talk. Unless if you come outside, come out with your hands up. Come out ready. Okay? But the reality is very simple here. My disappointment with Boo in this situation is not just that. It's also the fact that, do you not realize what you just did with this?
Right.
Look at conference realignments. Don't look at where the conferences are right now. Look at the conference realignment for next year. Candace, quick question. What conference is Washington going to next year?
The Big Ten, no?
Okay, they're going to the Big Ten. Okay. Candace, what conference is Texas going to next year?
The SEC.
Okay, Candace. Now, let's do some math here, okay? Michigan is from the Big Ten, and Washington is from the Big Ten, right? Mm-hmm. Now, Texas is from the SEC, and Bama is from the SEC, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me Like the two super conferences are double represented. And meanwhile, you go through the wire and do everything that you're supposed to do in the non-super conference, and you get left outside in the cold.
But I don't understand, like, my own edification. Feel free to drop in the comments. Like, how can people say that ESPN is in on it with the SEC when ESPN literally owns ACC right now in terms of like grant of rights? That's your daddy, kiss the baby, and all the things. Let's talk about it here in just a bit. But first, want to remind our friends that LinkedIn is the place to post your jobs. That's why you have to check them out. They have all the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It is not just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which make it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. Thankfully, LinkedIn is the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. So I say to myself, we've been talking about ESPN all off season. We're talking about grant of rights. We're talking about, ACC just basically being a slave to the ESPN system right now. And ESPN's like, listen, you can do whatever you want, but you ain't getting out of here. You ain't getting out of this contract. So we don't really give a F about you. Yeah. Don't understand it. Understand it.
And I mean, just look at the product. Look at the product. Look at the difference between the SEC network and the resources and all of the things that are put behind that as opposed to the ACC network. I'll tell you this much. If the coverage of the SEC games was taken over by the CW, right? Like that was in part taken over by the CW. Do you think the SEC fans would seriously sit up there and say the quality of this production by the CW is far superior to what we get out of the SEC? No.
I mean, if you put the SEC on the ID network channel, you know the one I'm talking about, the ION channel, right? You put them on there. Would they flock to it? Who knows? Because apparently there's not ACC fandom. FSU is not a major brand. They wouldn't sell tickets and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, what? It's mind-boggling to me that we watched the ship yesterday. Yeah. It was a great matchup between two teams. Louisville's fans came out in droves. Florida State fans came out in droves. And it's as if, it was going to be sparse. Sold out, like dang near sold out stadium. I'm not understanding the disconnect with which people are assuming the ACC is somehow a scrub conference. I will never understand it. Don't want to get it. Doesn't cross my mind. Sorry.
And on top of that, the reality is very simple, right? You set a very bad precedence for the best teams in, right? And I'm glad that we're expanding this thing out to 12. By the way, you know who's the reason that we didn't go to 12? Sankey. Oh. No, it's Sankey. He was dragging his feet in terms of
Jim voted down 12 too.
But and this is why I don't understand why anybody from the ACC would be denying that and holding that up, because of just moments like this, to where you have humans deciding who's best, who's worse, all that good stuff. Listen, I've been a proponent from the jump of use the computers and let them decide who gets into the playoffs, and that the playoffs should have been 12 from the jump. It should have been every conference champion with a shot, and then you have 2 at-large bids, and any group of 5 team, or not just group of 5, if a Power 5 champion is outside of the top 40 in FPI and all that, get them out and get them replaced with an at-large bid.
I think the worst thing about the committee, and I could have a whole segment on committee, is the fact that barely any of them done put their hand in that dirt. And as someone who's never put her hand in the dirt, I understand it, right? I've never been toe-to-toe, X's and O's and all the things. But who is this committee? I think they should be named one by one. Let's line them all up. Let's see the background and the pedigree with which they have rights to decide and really alter the lives of many children. You saw Florida State's reaction. They got up. Some of them got up and left. There was nothing to say. You saw Michigan's reaction when they knew they had to play Alabama. They're going to get dog walked. So is this like by proxy a way for Alabama to get another championship? Who knows? However, Texas, really? We're talking about champions right now. Texas, really?
Oh, I'm going to tell you something. And I know a lot of people ain't going to want to hear this, and they're going to think that this is me just being salty and all that good stuff. If I was Michigan, I think that they did a great job of not giving Alabama bulletin board material. But I think when they start watching that film and they don't look at those jerseys, they're going to realize wait a minute. This Bama team, their weakness is their front seven. They are not as physical as they've been in the past. Their defensive backfield is what they are best at right now. And what does Michigan want to do? With all due respect to J.J. McCarthy, they want to run that football. They want that ball under Blake Coral or Donovan Edwards' right or left arm. That's where they want that ball at more than anything else. And if you look at the Texas game, which Bama lost, you say, well, how did Texas get away with that one? Well, it was very simple. They controlled that game up front. And has Bama gotten better up front since then? Sure, yeah. But Michigan is physical. Those boys will beat you up. And to be honest, Iowa's defense is more physical than Alabama's. But with that being said, I just want to move forward to, at the end of the day, the worst part about this is we are not talking about how excellent of a performance the Florida State defensive front had.
Oh my God.
We're not talking about this.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you? I said that defense is going to be sound. They're going to hold themselves high. They are going to deliver. And deliver, they did. Jared Verse made himself damn near some top 5 pick money.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you this. Jared wasn't the only one to make himself some money because, again, there were multiple players on that defense that showed up when the game mattered most.
Name
and you're going to tell me, oh, well, it just doesn't count the same because, Tate Rodemaker wasn't in the game. Oh, it just can't count the same because.
So what is the real thing, Kenton? Is defense not really doesn't matter in sides of football? Does the quarterback position end all be all for all things football? Is this actually a team sport?
So here's the deal. There's 2 things happening at once. Number 1, defense by and large is going to be devalued, period. But number 2, why are we letting, this is what the committee said, in my opinion. Why are we letting facts get in the way of a good narrative? What are we doing? Because if you switch these jerseys, if you switch the jerseys of FSU with Alabama or LSU, and you do the same thing, do a jersey swap with Louisville, all of a sudden it becomes defensive struggle of the century. Oh boy, those Tigers, even down 2 quarterbacks, they found a way to win, and a team that finds a way, you can't keep them out. Oh boy, Nick Saban and that Tide, I'll tell you what, you can't bet against old Saint Nick. He's going to find a way regardless. Mike Norvell deserves that respect and love too.
Does his defensive coordinator, absolutely.
With all due respect, this game ain't about what you did years ago, what you did, who you've been historically. What have you done for me lately? In the words of Andre 3000, you're only funky as your last cut.
They made Plummer look pedestrian, and he's not been a bad quarterback. But they made him look they made Jawar Jordan have minimal flashes look pedestrian.
That running game, they made Louisville's running game look like they were running in mud because everywhere they went, there was a Garnet jersey waiting on them. Hey, friend, how you doing?
Those DBs had a time in the secondary.
Yeah.
Had a time.
And here's the thing. At absolute most, you can argue for Louisville scoring 2 touchdowns if Plummer is a little bit more on time and accurate with the ball. And even the one where the tight end hit the ground and didn't survive the ground with the catch, you can argue for that one. But with that being said, this was not like, oh my God, players were just running open everywhere and Plummer just couldn't hit them. These guys, they had those wide receivers in straitjackets. They had them everywhere they went. Hey, we going with you, friend. We going with you. And so to see this situation play out, and I'll tell you this, Boo Corrigan looks terrible right now, and people are saying he's going to destroy the ACC. Well, let me help y'all out. Let me give you.
Go ahead.
Let me give you just a little something to make you feel good about the ACC sticking around for a little while longer. The reality is, this is the last time that we're going to have this argument about 4 teams. Going forward, had we not had people dragging their feet and denying the 12-team playoff, we would have had Florida State in this year.
I think the jug is coming from inside the house, Kenton, and I'm going to talk about who in just a second. And I truly believe he is a crook. He's a crook, and we need to talk about it. But first, our friends at FanDuel want you to know that if you're in the NFL, if you want to get in some betting action right now, new customers at FanDuel get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Spreads, player props, over-unders, they've got damn near everything that you want. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get into that NFL action. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Now, by hook or by crook, to me, I feel like Jim Phillips has more explaining to do, Lucy. I don't understand how now all of a sudden you are so enraged, you are so upset, you are so pissed off. It's unfathomable that FSU is not in. Where were all your campaigns when you're going on all these damn trails? When you're over here having behind the scenes handshake conversations to have an alliance, you need to be ensuring that you're best of the best. Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Miami, the creme de la creme of a branding standpoint are happy. And you can't seem to do that. You just want to add damn SMU and friggin' Cal. And who cares? You focus on the wrong. You keep giving us everything but what we asked for.
Yeah.
All I wanted you to do was put Notre Dame in the damn conference, different ACC ball game. Different ACC. You sat up here every single year, ongoing conversations about adding and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm sick of it. You added, but what did we gain? A mediocre Stanford in California. Who gives a F about SMU? What did you gain? There's going to be no
SMU, ACC. The best of those three teams if we quiet as kept. You know, calling Cal and Stanford pedestrian. That's disrespectful to the word pedestrian. The pedestrian sitting there like, what's he say F me for? I'm just sitting here minding my business. But I'll tell you this. The reality of this thing, and I talked about this earlier, this is, Locked On has been calling me all throughout the network, and I've been on to talk about this thing multiple times, and I've said this multiple times, and I've said right here on this show. If Florida State wanted to boycott, I 1,000% stand with them. If they say, we're not going to play that game against Georgia, we're not going to do it. I don't care. No. I'm not mad at them at all because, again, 14 undefeated Power 5 teams all time, every single one of them makes the playoff except for this team. And not only except for this team, you don't put in one one-loss team, you put in two.
So you remember when someone was on the show and they're telling us about our power rankings early when we were starting out? And they were like, Candace and Kenton, if you put these people here, you put these people here, it, delegitimizes what y'all's takes are. It doesn't we can't take y'all serious, blah, 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 blah. And, we took it in introspection. And we're like, okay, let's make sure that we're very fair and honest and da-da-da-da. Felt like we've been doing that throughout the season. But if you really think about this committee and the power with which they have, I just don't know how you sleep at night knowing that we tell people in athletics, in sports, that W's are the main thing. And not only do these kids get the W's, they do it in spite of all the things that are holding them back, all the adversity with which they had to experience this season. And you say, yeah, but actually, no. That just, I don't know if I can get with that one ever. I don't, and I'm okay with being that 1, 2, maybe 6 who say, yeah, I never get that. I will never understand that.
And here's the other part of this thing that blows me. People talk about Florida State right now as if they don't. The first argument that kept popping out was their resume isn't good enough. Until people realize, their resume is more than good enough because they very well may have beaten the Heisman winner in Jaden Daniels, made him have one of his worst games of the season, a worst game that he had against anybody else. Okay, so you start there, and then you go forward to say, well, okay, we can't give you the resume line because you've beaten more ranked teams than almost anybody else, and you've beaten an LSU team handily, might I add, and you've done all the things. Well,
find a new life, Kenton.
Your quarterback situation is terrible. Because they had to start a freshman in the last game of the year?
Who literally kind of pissed down his leg and did everything but that. Like, okay, he had a bad game. Sure, I'd probably have a bad game too if I knew what was on the damn line. Like, let's be freaking for real.
But how, and this is what I'm saying, how is it fair? How is it fair to blame them and say, we're expecting you to perform like this offensively going forward, even though that third stringer is likely not touching the field again this year. He's like, again, it's concussion protocol. It's not a torn ACL, PCL, MCL, not a broken neck, not a spine injury, not something, that broken arm to where like, hey, this young man is not going to be fit to play in a month. It's concussion protocol.
And my biggest thing is like, okay, Jim, you made the statement. You said, you know what, dang, is cool. And then the moment later, you're like, all right, get ready for the Orange Bowl. Here are the rest of our ACC teams. Nah, I'm going to need you to go a little bit harder, player. I need you to be on Get Up tomorrow morning. I need you to be right up in their faces. I need you to be – Sankey would do it. Sankey would do it.
Hello? The Big Ten get new commissioners every couple years. And guess what? All of them commissioners, hey, we're rolling. Don't worry about it.
So it's like, who slid the money under the table? Because at the end of the day, it's not computing for me. And this is my final thought to it. You know, a win is a win. This is supposed to be what matters. But my heart as a former athlete is broken, because when you have life after sports, right, you learn quickly that achievement doesn't necessarily mean you get something. There's not necessarily a prize at the end of it. Like, you can work your butt off and not get a promotion. People get passed over. You have to learn that everything does not get a blue ribbon when it's all said and done. These kids had to learn a very ugly lesson, which I did all that I could. I killed myself to literally win, to be successful, and yet still not enough, and still out of my hands and uncontrollable. And there's a lesson in that. Whoever you speak to, I'm sure they'll all have that. But how sickening is that? And I feel like if they don't have a therapist now, they better get one.
Here's my other part about this thing, because I keep seeing in King Leo VT, somebody that's a regular here, somebody that I respect their opinion very highly, is talking about how Bama beat Georgia and FSU struggled against Louisville, who had 2 losses. Don't let the recency bias fool you, brother. Let's go back another week. FSU, sure, you could say they struggled against Florida, but they came out in that game a winner by 9 points, right? Bama barely, just barely, by the hairs on their chin, by an act of God, a muffed punt and a 4th and 30 conversion. Oh, I'm sorry, not 4th and 30. 4th and goal from the 30 conversion. That's what it took for them to beat a 6-win team. So don't tell me about, what did Florida State look like against Louisville? Louisville is immensely better than Auburn.
My biggest thing is like, at the end of the day, why does every win have to be sexy? There's no such thing. Every win doesn't have to be insanely dominant, especially in a dog-eat-dog world that is football. Like, you're not going to convince me that unless they win handedly, they don't deserve, because at the end of the day, they still won. Like, however you dress your adjective after that, fine. But the W still is going to be in that record book. They still had an undefeated season. They still are going to be known in history, mark it, as the most disrespected championship team ever.
And let me tell you something. You know, when I played at Cal State, we won the first Division I state championship in the history of the city of Detroit. And there was allegedly, the letter was written. The letter was allegedly written by a alumni of the private Catholic school that we played. And that private Catholic school cost a lot of money. And they talked about how, hey, you all can win on the field and you can beat our boys, but you all are going to lose in life. You all are going to be thugs, criminals, etc. And you know what we said after we saw that letter? We said, you can call us thugs, you can call us criminals, you can call us ghetto warriors, you can call us whatever you want to call us. But make sure at the end of whatever you call us, you throw Division I state champs at the end of it. Because it doesn't, all of that other stuff, all of the other noise, it does not matter. What did you do? What did you do? And it's amazing to me how you can have a winning record against the SEC. Oh, well, you played their bottom feeders. LSU is a conference bottom feeder. But to me, there you go. It's like, it's always something, right? And instead of what it is, it's always something why. And that makes my blood boil. And here's the worst one. Here's the worst one that I love, because Kirby Smart is the king of saying this. Kirby Smart is the king of saying this one. Who wants to see us in the playoff? My brother in Christ, who wants to see any of these teams? What team do you think is begging and please give me Jared Verse? Please give me Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. I want to see both of them. Those are the two guys. Give me Kalen DeLoach. I want to see him immediately in the hole. That's the backer I want to see.
Like, give me Fisk.
Ooh.
It's insanity, and we can spin our wheels. And again, at the end of the day, we're not Seminoles fans. We don't have a dog in the fight for real. But right is right, and wrong is wrong. Like, that's
I was
just the
about to
nuts and
say,
bolts of it.
I'm always gonna have a dog in the fight of right and wrong, and I'm always on the side of right. And you cannot tell me with a straight face, hey, well, your conference champ looked bad in the last game, so it does not matter. Every team has had games where they've looked up, they've looked like world beaters, and then they've looked, man. All of these teams that we're talking about in the top 4, 5, 6 conversation have had games where they whooped the wheels off somebody. And they've had games where they struggled against teams they should not have struggled against. So it's ridiculous to me. It's unfair to me to say, hey, this is the reality of, you don't belong in because of what? Because of what? And these teams out of the SEC are just so good. They're just so much better than you. They're just so much better. Listen, that Texas team lost to Oklahoma. Stop playing. Stop playing with us. What are we doing here?
If you got the oil money, just say that. Just say that. And I think that's fine. I would prefer if they just stop lying. It's cool if you say, hey, by margin of here, their fans watch TV a little bit more. These people buy a couple more t-shirts. These people gonna sell out the stadium. Cool, I get it. But it's silly to even tell yourself that it had to do with merit and being in the X's and O's and downs.
Absolutely.
Like, it's silly.
Absolutely.
Just not.
And I also want to just address this argument real quick because everybody keeps screaming. There are 2 arguments that are really terrible. And I talked about the whole blowout and nobody wants to see a blowout thing on Twitter. I've talked about that ad nauseum. The fact that the average margin of victory in playoff games, period, is 18 points per game. Semifinals, 19 points per game. National championships, 15 points per game. And mind you, that's excluding the blowout that happened with TCU. That would greatly skew that thing upward. But I want to talk about this. It's not about who's most deserving. It's about who's best. Best according to what? Best according to what? Best according to who looked the best in your estimation in the last week? Because if you combine these last 2 performances, you're going to tell me, oh, yeah, FSU just looks so bad compared to everybody else. FSU just – and I think that this mixer person in the comments is very interesting because they keep dodging LSU got beat by Florida State. Is LSU one of the SEC's worst teams or better teams?
But even if it's your bottom feeders, like at the end of the day, you got beat. Like, I'm just confused. I'm just confused. The L is the L is the L is the L. Hold it.
And here's my interesting thing about that. How good is your conference if everybody's a bottom feeder except for 1 or 2 teams? Oh, nobody's good except for Bama and Georgia. If you didn't beat one of those 2, it didn't count. Well, how good is your conference? How good are they? So with that being said, again, they're the best team based on what? Based on what? Based on the fact that they beat other SEC teams? Well, those other SEC teams went out of conference and lost. They went out of conference and lost to the ACC. So how, in what world, and this is what I mean in terms of don't let facts get in front of a good narrative. Never let facts get in front of a good narrative. You can't let that happen.
Here's the thing. As it boils down, we do live shows all the time. We've never had such a tizzy as the time is now. So either you've never paid attention to the ACC before, or now you're just mightily interested. And for those of us who've been in the trenches of it, yes, we understand that the ACC as it used to be will never be again. And that's okay. We made peace with however this comes to pass. Boy, the offseason, we thought we were going to be bored. No, our things are going to be plucking left and right. Who's going to be here? Who's not going to be here? Are we even going to be locked on ACC at the end of the summer? Pac-12, the 2-pack, they said, we're going to be right there with them. Same way SEC is now on CBS. Shoot, we might not be on YouTube. Who knows? But Absolutely. If we could give a main takeaway, a walk away from this, I would simply say that the integrity with which we talk about sports was really put in jeopardy today. It's extremely disappointing. I wish Jim Phillips would do more, had done more before we even got here. Here we are. Now, I feel for FSU. We have to turn the page. There's a whole nother year. We could cry about it for the next 6 months. Cool. Whatever we need to do, let's do that. But what I will say is ultimately you're doing a disservice to the thing with which you tell these people to go in and day out each season. And that's the kids, the athletes. You're doing a disservice to the athletes.
Of course. And again, I don't like, if we're going to talk facts, let's talk facts. But if we're going to talk narratives, then let's just throw narratives against the wall. Again, you cannot look at one team's bad performance. You cannot say, oh, Florida State barely beat Louisville with their third string quarterback, who, by the way, would not be starting in the college football playoff, but not look at Bama barely beating Auburn with everybody in tow. Everybody was there. Everybody was available. And that's the team that you're like, hey, I have no doubt in my mind they're going to beat Michigan. Again, I'm going to tell you this much. With the way that Michigan has rallied around each other and formed together like Voltron after these cheating allegations, I'm going to tell you this much. That game,
I just want two semifinals. I want it to be both teams, whoever it is, to get dog walked, so we can just have it out. Like, oh my gosh, look at these blowouts that you guys just could not ever foresee happening, because everybody can tell the future.
But again, the reality is the best predictor. Miss Vicky Green, love you very much, Miss Green, the English teacher, taught me a lot that I know, and she taught me one phrase that sticks with me, and it will stick with me until the day that I'm no longer here on this earth. The best predictor of future behaviors is the past. The past has shown us the average semifinal game has a 19-point spread. That's the average. The average team is winning or losing by 3 touchdowns. So what are we talking about with, we don't want to see any blowouts? Talk about the national championship. Even if you take out Georgia and TCU, there have been as many 20-plus point wins in the national championship as there have been single-digit wins. There have been more double-digit victories in the national championship than there have been single-digit victories by almost 2 times. So what are we doing? What are we doing here?
At the end of the day, maybe we should just all rally. We should boycott the college football playoffs. We shouldn't watch and protest at the ACC not being in. Like, what's the answer here? Is anybody gonna be upset for real?
I'll tell you this much: if Florida State decide to boycott playing Georgia because they're like, no, you punished us for winning, I'm not mad at it. Yeah. I'm not mad at it. And guess what? That game is going to be the bowl sit-out-a-thon. Both of those teams have so many players that what do you gain from winning that game? What do you gain? And these are not again, we're looking at a different ball game than if this were other teams in those conferences, right? So if this was like, let's say, Ole Miss and NC State, those are 2 teams. Y'all go get that Orange Bowl for y'all. You go get it. Go do your thing. Go get it. You're talking about two teams that, if you are talking about, how old their fans would have to be to have seen a national championship. Congratulations if you're a baby that isn't a newborn. You've seen the Georgia championship. Congratulations if you're a child that's hit self-actualization. You've seen a Florida State championship and Jameis Winston eating W's. So what are we really doing here in terms of?
Yes, but Florida State's mad. I would be just as high as fish grease if I was Georgia too. How do you go from 1 to out? Help me, Lord.
Because at the end of the day, this thing was, 4 was never enough. If you were going to do a playoff, 4 was never enough. And for me personally, it's not even about, hey, who will not, it's not about, hey, this playoff is here to create parity. The playoff to me is there to give everybody a chance. Yeah. That's what the playoff is there for. It's there to say, you know what? It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. We won't have a situation where UCF is claiming a false national championship. We won't have a situation where an undefeated team is sitting up here and going to a game that, is basically meaningless for the other team. So they're probably going to win. I want to see everybody get a chance. And I've said this from the inception of the playoff. It should have been 12 teams, and it should have been every conference champion has a shot, unless you're outside the RPI top 35 or so. If you're outside of that, your bid gets replaced by that large bid, and boom, we rock from there.
And that's why they pay you the top dollar. Phillips and Sankey, they weren't quite on the loop there, but maybe Phillips has jumped on the bandwagon now. Who knows? It remains to be seen. Guys, It has been a pleasure to talk to you about this content today. You can come back. There's more Florida State conversation. Everyone's going to let it out. We do have to talk about some bowl games here. It's a lot. It's a heavy day for our station. I ain't going to hold you. Yeah. It's not something that we were expecting to happen. I was expecting to have an exciting conversation around the ACC being in the college football playoffs, but break my heart yet again. And honestly, Florida State, go get that Saudi money. I ain't mad at you, player. Go get it. Get up out of here. Let the boys in Chapel Hill know how you did it, and let's get this thing rolling. If we're gonna exit, let's make sure the strategy great.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this again. I don't think that they should leave only because with the conferences then being 12, with the playoff now being 12, there's no way. And if you do this, if you think about it this way, you can be a team in the SEC that potentially finishes 4th or 5th and doesn't get in. Or you can be a team that's perennially going to be either 1A, 1B, at worst 2 to 3, and you're more likely than not guaranteed a way in through those types of deals. Listen, Florida State, I feel for you. My heart goes out to you. Boy. And again, Jordan Travis having to apologize. Insane.
Now listen, y'all all know, if y'all really be watching this show, y'all all know how I be like Jordan Travis for Heisman. I'm not going to do no Jordan Travis slander. And at the end of the day, I know he's a good kid. It was always jokes and fun. But like when I tell you I was ready to square up about Jordan after he tweeted that,
my heart
I said, don't play with my baby. Don't play with my baby.
Yeah.
Because he didn't deserve that. And I really will go toe to toe. And I'm ready to fight right now to see these comments. And I'm ready.
And as a guy who myself had to be retired from a medical red shirt because of injuries, I understand. Like, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing that and the thing that I hate so much about this is, and we can end it here. Football is known as what? The ultimate team sport. This ain't basketball, where one transfer changes your fortunes entirely. If you look at the way that this Florida State team is built, if you want to sit here and lie and say, oh, well, they only got good because of Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson transferred in, Jordan Travis transferred in, Jared Verse transferred in, Fincho Cyphers transferred in. So many guys came in to this thing to make this happen.
And bought in and looked past such hard seasons and hard years. Just to end for it like this is heartbreaking beyond what that chaplain on speed dial. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and it's a shame. It's a shame. Again, so many players bought in, and you're telling me, well, hey, pounding Oklahoma State that literally has not won a single game this year where Ali Gordon didn't rush for over 100 yards, that warrants a playoff spot, apparently. That's what gets you in. That's what gets you in. And, oh, by the way, an Oklahoma State team that lost to South Alabama got blew out by them. Tell them to bring the yacht out. That team.
Okay. Well, if you want to talk to Kenton more about these things, please hit him up at @TGIF_Kenton. He can let it out. He knows all about these things from personal and lived experience. We're going to talk more about part 2, maybe tomorrow, because it feels like maybe we just need to get it out a little more. More news could come out. Look, Florida lawmakers have been known to do a crazier thing or two. Why not? So you might as well throw it all out there. Let's see what sticks. But we'll have all of that and more, as well as your holiday bowl games and where the ACC will land, because it took all day for us to find out, given the ramifications of what happened with the College Football Playoff. We'll talk about all of that for Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs. Until next time.